Mark Crossfield here with GolfOnline, trying to help you play some better golf.
Should we talk a bit about wrist set on the backswing? This is such a common question I get asked. So what do we talk about in wrist set in the backswing? So how you take the club back and how the wrists start to hinge set.
Now, it's very complex when you start looking at wrist hinge, because you actually start looking at forearm rotations as well, because they're all very closely linked. And the way you hinge your wrists and set them and rotate forearms can encourage big movements of face, often firstly changing loft for golfers, but then secondly changing face to paths as well, because of the way they try to then manage that loft. So some really basic checkpoints that I would like you to try and think about. Now, these aren't fixes. You should always go and get a lesson. That's probably the best way for you to get your wrist hinge and ideas of set working for you. But if you're someone who's thinking about wrist set, this might be some basic ideas that you could take to the range and give a go, and if they help you hit the ball better, then it's a winner.
So what I like to do with students is I like to use their version of wrist sets, so how they hinge the club, and work some different patterns in.
Rather thinking more that people should hinge the wrist the same, every player should do it the same way. That just falls down really quickly.
So I see content and videos saying you need to be a right angle or not. That's something I don't care about. What I like to see as you set the club back, as you hinge your wrist, if you're starting from any kind of neutral hold position.
So again, the complication here is if your grips are different, you won't have the same looking wrist hinge or wrist positions to the carbon copy of you with a different hold. So if we're talking kind of 2 to 3 knuckles left hand, no particular kind of strong or twisted grips, neutral grip position hinges.
I like to see players trying to set the club back where they start trying to really flatten the back of the left hand with the left arm.
I don't like seeing hinging, cupping, extending of that wrist too much from neutral holds. It tends to turn the face through a lot of loft.
Backswings that encourage a lot of loft often encourage very leftward paths, and then we start seeing higher cutting, weaker golf shots. So making a few backswings where you feel like you're flattening the wrist with your left arm is very strong for lots of golfers in controlling face to path,
which in turn then can move path in better directions.
So for me, with a foot joint glove on here, I'm going to try and feel like I'm turning it almost back into this corner a little bit. With some students who struggle to do this movement, I'd get them to feel like they're almost turning it behind.
That's a feeling that exaggerates the move, but sometimes you have to do that because wrist hinges, as I said earlier, are so instinctive. I don't like to tell people they must do it this way, but I like to try and introduce some patterns and some ideas. And thinking about how much your hinges and twists in your wrists and arm are affecting the face
is a great way for shaping the ball. To give you an example, if you start taking the club back and getting the wrist flat with that left arm and hitting some better shots, try somewhere you do hinge the wrist really where the pad goes back. So really taking that wrist hinge out and kind of bending, bowing that wrist back, and see what happens to your shape of shot. Do somewhere you keep the cup in there, the extension in that wrist in there, hit some shots, see what happens to the height,
see what happens to the direction, because I will use my wrist conditions, the way I move them, to move the ball higher and lower, left and right, and curve it. It's actually a skill of the game. So trying to just hit the perfect position really isn't going to help anyone, in my opinion. I think you need to play with some ideas. Certainly a base point of starting with flat lead left wrist with the back of your left arm does a lot of good for a lot of golfers.